work, like, I need a story about that, because that is so detailed. You obviously have so much deep history and knowledge, intimate knowledge of all the inner workings. I bet you there are other people who would be interested in hearing about all of these things, and maybe how you got on these committees that create these codes, and because it sounds like you did something that was pretty extraordinary, and that you're continuing to do things that are really important for your country. And that's a story that probably not a lot of people realize. And I would like to, I would love to follow up with you afterwards to see how we can spread the word to other people, both in terms of the good work that you're doing, as well as how you did that work. So that way you see, you know, some of the things, what can we do, what do you need? Training, mentorship. It sounds like that's a resource that perhaps you can help some of your colleagues with. So thank you very much, I appreciate that. Yes, sir, we had, I believe I saw a hand maybe over in this general direction. Yeah, and then we'll go here.
Yeah. Hey, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. Maria Todorovic, Danube chapter. For us, everything what all items you had in public policy priority already given on your slide are the same, but one addition. That's energy efficiency, and you have, but renewable energy sources. So absolutely, we have to have renewable energy sources and net zero CO2 emission. And I'm surprised that it was not in ASHRAE slide. Thank you.
Yeah, this is one of those things that it gets kind of into the specific activities, and that's, thank you for your feedback. So, like, ASHRAE has a lot of stated priorities in a lot of different areas. So this is one of the challenges that we sought to meet in developing public policy priorities and creating the GGAC and all of that, was to have greater focus and coordination. So ASHRAE is supportive of renewable energies. You know about Standard 189.1 in the IGCC and the requirements therein for renewable energy, and that we support net zero energy or zero energy buildings. So I would say that when you see like the public policy priorities, those are the things that we want to focus on the most at the moment, but they're definitely not the only thing that we're engaged in. And at various levels, we're engaged in different things. And that's one of the things that we want to hear from you on, is that if there's something in particular going on with regard to renewable energy or net zero energy buildings, then we want you to spread that word. Like, for instance, around the country, so we have the Paris Climate Agreement, right? So that's going to go into effect pretty soon, right? We just had some historic changes. Over 55 countries have now signed on. Probably by the end of the year, we're going to have the 55%. So we'll have a threshold met, so we'll have the 55 requirements, and that'll go into effect. And then you have the NDCs that are going, the countries will voluntarily meet. And within all of those, you're going to have different strategies for meeting those requirements. So really, one of the key priorities that you sort of see, it's sort of behind all the others, is regardless of what government's doing, if it's an area where ASHRAE's members have expertise in, then we want to make sure that expertise is getting plugged in. So if it's renewable energy, great, let's make sure that's happening. If it's something else, let's make sure that's happening. If there are plans, a lot of governors in the U.S. states have energy plans. We want to make sure that our priorities are duly represented there. So a lot of activities, a lot of opportunities. Yes, sir.
Morning, I'm Dinesh Gupta, and Mr. Madgil covered. I'm also from ASHRAE India chapter. I'm currently GGAC chair, and Mr. Madgil acts as a mentor to all of us, so he's covered most of it. one topic you just talked about renewable energy, and I think that's one thing which is being currently pushed in India because of a vast availability of energy. So solar thermal cooling is being encouraged by the government, and we sort of coordinating with them to see that how we can get into it. So there will be a lot of knowledge if can be shared, which then can become more comprehensive and all-inclusive on solar thermal cooling. Mr. Modgill can add if there's something more on that. So that's one part, and even on photovoltaic. So cooling, because I think the energy required in air conditioning typically is about 30–40% of the overall energy we spend. So it's a focus always there on to see how we can increase efficiencies and how we can go into the renewable energy. So I currently personally myself is trying to see that we work closely with the government agencies on solar thermal cooling and see how one can help take that various products.
Thank you. So on a related note, I would wonder how your chapters are determining where they're focusing their efforts.
Right.
You know, like, so if, are you going into the governments and saying, here's what ASHRAE, here's what we view as important, or are you kind of being more reactionary and you're waiting until they say what they want to do? So, you know, renewable energy, as you mentioned, is very important. Well, why is it important? Did someone go in there and say to them, renewable energy is going to solve your problems?
Yeah, I think we do both. And that's the reason why we say we invite most of the policy makers to our chapters and to our various forums, which we would create to get them aware of what's there and how then policies can be modified or tuned towards that. So that is the basic, it's not a very quick process. So as Mr. Modgill started saying how much time it takes, so whatever he's doing, he's spending a lot of time of his personnel to do these activities for us. So we all try and collaborate together to make sure that the government sees the right light and technologies come into the whole domain in India. That's the generally the position I take along with other members.
Great, thank you. Yes, we had two. I saw one. Okay, got one over there, and then we're going over here.
Would you like?
Let's see, I can.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm from Malaysia chapters. Previously, I had worked with a Malaysian government agency, and now I am involved in a demand side management study for government department. And for that, I've encouraged our chapter GGAC to be involved, and he did. It's taken part in our workshop discussion. The point I want to make is I agree that there was a good suggestion about the compiling brochure for our chapters. I think Morrison has done a good job for the region 13. But I'm thinking it may be from the government agency point of view, having worked with them, I think the content should have what ASHRAE can do for the government departments or agencies. For example, if you have a brochure that can summarize the strength, the work that ASHRAE has done, I think that would be great.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, and this is exactly the type of information that we need. Say, you know, okay, you're working on a demand side management study, and you need a handout that explains succinctly how we can help on demand side management. And okay, great. So that's not that difficult to put together, because you probably don't want like a 10-page document. You probably want like 1 or 2 pages, right? Yeah, something like that. Okay, so you know, what I would like to do is compile a list of all your needs, and then, like I said, we start helping you out. You know, maybe there are things that you're going to do yourselves, and that's fine. We'll put that into a bucket. Maybe there are some things that you want us to prepare for us, because, you know, like, you're paid staff, and we got other people, and we got a committee that can do this. So, you know, like, I write letters all day long, so we can do that. And eventually we'll, you know, we'll create some buckets of what we can do and what we need to do and all that. So then you saw over there, yeah.
Good morning. My name is Yampi Maya. I'm from Chennai, India. My GGAC chair has not come. I'm president delegate. This is regarding HFC face down. Last Monday, I was there in Delhi with a big meeting. Ministry has called for a meeting with all stakeholders. Of course, I was there as an academician. The question asked is what is the time schedule for phase down of HFC, and what is the allowed global warming potential which will be allowed for the next 10 years. So in this aspect, ASHRAE has got any lobbying or anything is done with the, not only in US, in the world body, any lobbying, what number is allowed? Is it 1,000 or 800, 900, which things? Because that has come into picture. Our stakeholders in India are worried, because if you fix something and within next 5 years it is lowered, then it's a big problem. That's what our refrigerant manufacturers are feeling. HFC has come recently, about 5-6 years back, and they have not recovered their money yet, and they are asked to bring down their things. So,
Wonderful question. I have a response, but before I do, it looks like Cesar has something he would like to say.
Yeah, actually, if you look at the UNEP program, the GWP for around the world except Europe is 300. That would be the maximum. And for Europe, it should be 150 GWP and below.
this has come already there, and when I asked the secretary of the ministry, he told the same thing, 150 in Europe, it is only for automobiles. And I don't know where from 300 came, and at the end he told that maybe 700 may be that lobbying, I don't know. So there's a lot of discussion on this, so if some clarity comes, it would be fine, because it's an information which we will be able to communicate to government or some.
This is great. Members talking to each other.
Yeah, actually the 300 was a decision that was made during the Kyoto Protocol, and the 150 was the commitment of Europe. So all over the world, including Japan, the US, and developing economies, it is 300. So that's why you would see the targets of those halocarbon refrigerant manufacturers is to go below at least 150 so that they can supply all over the world.
Let me confirm, is it for automobile or all the applications?
All
Applications, right?
Yeah.
300.
300 for outside
Europe.
of Europe,
Okay.
and 150 for Europe.
Nice.
That's all.
Already by
It's in the UNEP. Yeah, that's right. It's in the UNEP program.
Yeah, obviously ASHRAE is engaged in government affairs in a lot of different manifestations. It's why a lot of times people don't think of activities of ASHRAE as government affairs, but it is, and we're seeking to coordinate that, and we're happy to relate that information. You had another question?
Can I have a supplement question on this?
Yes,
See, again, and one more question came in our meeting, which is big, 50 people across all stakeholders. One more question is GWP is based on the quantity of refrigerant. For example, company A uses only 500 grams, and company use same capacity, same type of unit, it only uses only 200 grams. Whether 200 grams company is getting some leverage on GWP or not? Quantity based refrigerant?
No, it's not quantity based. because when you say GWP, it means that it is the equivalent CO2 emission. So 1 GWP is 1 kilo of CO2 emission. So when you if you use, for example, 134A, it is 1,430 kilos equivalent of CO2.
But I'm using much less refrigerant.
Even though. So it's not the number of refrigerant charge or the number of grams that you charge. It is the equivalent. Okay.
Careful, my friends.
I'm Edmund Lane from Macau chapter, one of the newest. Got a question then in regards to IEQ. Actually, about smoking, indoor smoking, and I guess this is an old topic, but this is important for a new chapter. In Macau, because of the gaming industry, before they have indoor smoking for customers. And the government imposed new regulations to ban indoor smoking. But they affect the business and the operator, they have a tough time to deal with that policy. But as ASHRAE, GGAC, and just wondering what would be how to handle this situation? What is the take from ASHRAE side, headquarters side on indoor smoking, and what would be our position in terms of in this topic? What advocacy are we trying to push? Because this is touchy subject. This is affecting health and also affecting economies of the society and whatnot. So just like to get some insights from you, Mark, or anybody else.
Certainly, we would commend to them the position document. I believe it's called Environmental Tobacco Smoke. And so that itself, the position documents are quite useful. They contain an executive summary. They contain recommendations, many of which are government facing. So those are located right on the ASHRAE website. That are about ASHRAE. Yes, and then there's Bill. Yes, sir.
Yeah, actually, I've got the PD.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
On my phone. ASHRAE concludes that the consensus of the medical community and its practice with authorities he has as a health risk, causing lung cancer, heart disease in adults, exacerbation of asthma, etc. Present, the only means of effectively limiting health risk associated with indoor exposure to smoking is to ban smoking. Complete separation and isolation of smoking rooms to control ETS exposure. Adverse health effects of the occupants of smoking room cannot be controlled by ventilation. And basically, ASHRAE's position has been that there's no one who has made a credible case that you can allow smoking in a building and do anything with indoor environmental control to make it safe. So that's why for some time ASHRAE Standard 62.1 has declined to provide any guidance on how to ventilate a smoking area. Instead, indicates that it should simply be isolated in different areas where smoking is permitted. There was an addendum to 62.1 a few years ago that failed that was based on perceived air quality-based ventilation of smoking spaces. ASHRAE simply writes standards and tries to act on the basis of the best available science. Now, there's some authority wants to say, because we believe the gaming industry is important, we want to allow them to have smoking in their spaces. You can do that, but it's up to them to determine what they're going to do to protect the occupants of those spaces. So I think the best thing that ASHRAE can do for those who want to allow indoor smoking is to say, here's the science, and you need to decide what you can do on the basis of that to provide the safest environment you can for your patrons.
Thank you both. Yes, sir.
For developing countries, with reference to hospitals, do you have any small guideline, handbook kind of thing which we can give it for, small mid-sized hospitals? What are the recommendations? Because what really happens is, in developing countries, it just comes up. Do we have some kind of document which we can share with them?
Cesar might have, do you have another answer? You can go to our, oh, here we go.
You can go to ASHRAE bookstore. We have those. We have that design guide book for hospitals, so you can just buy online, or if you're going to Las Vegas this year, you can buy it in the bookstore.
May I share? For the hospital, for the healthcare facility, ASHRAE have the TC called TC 9.6. I'm the voting member for that TC. And mostly, this is, your question is very good. And you know, for the hospital to design the healthcare facility, for the US centric, they're thinking about big, that's big money. So the job for engineers should be designed for the big. And I find some guidance. This is from the WHO. This is for the third world. It is a free download. This is they focus on natural ventilation. So I will forward to you. Yes, and or maybe market and then market. Yeah. One of the things I would like to share that you know, I have many questions from many chairs. So what is the most important? The most important is it depends on the time, place, and the situation you face. So we are the DGSE. We should be the clearinghouse. We should find the best place is the ASHRAE position document, like you share. You look at that and you try to understand. For example, for the smoking area. Smoking area is most of the building they ban, but some of the building like a casino, that's the must. So but you have to decide our job, our money. We also request to do that also for the smoking, like a casino, and what should we do? So they have some calculation, and this is for the position document. This is just a starting point. But if you like to go in the detail, you have to be the member of TC and ask the chair. Is that right? Bill?
Yeah, well, position documents
Yes.
identify regulatory
Yes.
priorities and research.
Yes, that's a good conclusion.
Because what happens, during some of our seminars or conferences, we invite some health ministry delegates
Yes.
from government bodies. So when they just come, it's a good occasion to share with them some kind of a document,
Yes.
a very authoritative document, a brief one, which they can just say that it gets into their system right.
Exactly.
If
It is called the ASHRAE position document. This is under Government Affairs tab in the website, so you can find it. That's a lot. Or you use the search engine in the ASHRAE website. And most of the people, they ask us, and then we are the clearinghouse. We have to give them some information. Do we have a point over there? Question?
Hello everyone, Hassan Yunus, I'm the ARVC GGAC Subregion A and GGAC for the Falcon chapter. Just adding to the hospitals, there's also the Advanced Energy Design Guide, which you can download for free. This is mainly for different type of buildings. One of them is hospitals. Now I want to talk about something I faced recently. As you all know, that 6.2.1 and 6.2.2 have recently been updated, and now 6.2.2 covers all residential buildings. What I'm facing now is that previously it required 50 CFM extract rate from kitchens, and now it's changed to 5 air changes per hour. So if you compare high-rise residential, before it required 50 CFM, now it requires 5 air changes per hour. So for a typical kitchen, it jumped to 100 from 50. So now I'm trying to convince the government officials, go with the latest standards, and they find out, well, if we're going to use this, our energy expenditure will go up by, let's say, 5 or 10%, whatever that number is. So my issue is that whenever we do those updates, I think there would be, I know there's the public review that's happening, but I think there should be also some kind of communication between the chapters to get the feedbacks on specific items or specific issues. I mean, this is something I just faced recently, and I just thought maybe I can share it with you.
So that's a great point. So what I'm hearing is that you need a document that explains why the changes were made and why they're in the best interest, or why the society and the committee deemed it in the best interest to make that change.
Exactly, and I mean, in the US it could not have a huge impact. It might or might not have, but maybe in other parts of the world it might have a great impact, especially in places like Dubai, where you have, I mean, most of the buildings are high-rise. It would have a huge impact compared to the US and different cities and different type of buildings.
So that sounds like something that we could follow up with you on, that we can coordinate with that TC and get an update or an explanation about why that change was made, and then we can put it into terms that would be meaningful to the folks that you need to speak to. So we can, if you like, we can take that as an action item to follow up with you and get that, because obviously if you don't have that information, if you're not able to clearly explain to the government officials why the technical expertise and why the changes were made, then it might not happen. They might not adopt, they might resist, and there might be very good reasons.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here we are.
Thank you for this opportunity. I am Victor from ASHRAE Indonesia chapter. Well, in my country, as one of the Article 5, according to the World Bank or UNDP, and to this what public policy priorities or government affairs issues are most important to your chapter. We have been doing from the first of the repation program for the HCFC's refrigerant that will be freezed in 2030, something like that. That's the involvement. In the meanwhile also, now, I suppose in Rwanda, in October, next week, that will be another issues again, because R410A, for example, the DGWP is around 2,000. So now going to be hydrofluoroolefin or natural refrigerant. And the flammability also from one of my countries stated R32 did the GWP around 675. So must treat 1/3 of the R10A. Meanwhile, because the Montreal Protocol issued again to pace down the HFC's refrigerant, including 410A, R32 hydrocarbon, and coming to the green refrigerant. Okay, whatever it is, yeah, this the involvement of the GGAC to three main ministries. One is the environmental ministry that involved for this ODP, also WP, and etc. for the environment. And the second is ministry for licenses and etc. And the energy saving resources ministry for the energy saving and for the renewable energy. That's program. So all the appliances will be labeled 1 to 5. The 5 is the best COP or the EF. So how the people will buy that one. But it's only for the small appliances. Talking about that involvement, we follow the government, and also for the ASHRAE's members also in my country also involved, especially for the senior people. I don't know in other countries' experience, but my I would like to ask you about the email that we got. We will focus on the public policy priorities of IEK, energy efficiency, residential and public safety. Could you please explain the difference between the indoor air quality and indoor environmental quality? What is the most, and the second is, what is the priority for residential in the what do you mean by residential? Can you elaborate? And the public safety, I understand, for the home appliances, for the safety device, and also for the flammability of the refrigerant in order to achieve the very green refrigerant, the hydrofluoroolefin. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you very much. So taking your last point first, ASHRAE is engaged in research on the flammable refrigerants in coordination with ASHRAE and the U.S. Department of Energy to advance research at a faster pace that will go into standards 15 and 34, and that'll be part of the implementation of an amendment to the Kyoto Protocol that is expected to pass in the very near future. So that's ASHRAE's involvement on the flammable refrigerants, if that answers your point on that. The other, with respect to IAQ versus IAQ, I'm sure that everyone else in the room knows the differences much better than I, but in general I understand the EQ encompasses thermal comfort, humidity, what else? Acoustics, lighting, right, thank you. And so why that was chosen over AQ, I think just because it was, or it is a little bit more all-encompassing, and you know, there's certainly a debate upon which is the right to focus upon. The thing that you should keep in mind is that these are high-level priorities that just provide guidance in terms of areas to focus, and the specific activities are really in no way limited by the priorities themselves. So, for instance, in the U.S., we're very much focused on the development of legislation on indoor air quality and somewhat on environmental health. So I'm not sure if that's responsive to your question and other points. In case it wasn't, then I'm happy to follow up later. Yes?
We are working out on IEQ standard for India, and we are in touch with our Standard Institute for that, and that is a development. My question is basically a combination of question which Dinesh and a young lady and other guy with demand side and renewable energy management is concerned. We in India, most of the generation is coming through coal, which has got a lot of wastage in terms of energy of the source, as well as the distribution losses in our country because of the kind of distribution set network we have is pretty high. Now, when we come to renewable energy, we have three options. One is solar thermal, another is solar PV with storage, and third is, which we have in one of our project, we could convince our government, because it was the Human Resources Ministry project for an institute which is coming out at Jodhpur. So that was that the BARC, Bhava Atomic Research Center, wanted to put solar thermal, which they had basically sanctioned for. we suggested, because this institute has air conditioning at night time as well as daytime, so we suggested that instead of going for solar thermal, we should go for thermal storage. So what we are doing is we are generating during daytime, storing that into thermal storage, and then transferring that, using that during night time. So it took us a lot of efforts. We had to kind of convince government. I'm looking for a paper for other projects as well, where some kind of research or ASHRAE has got some kind of information available which can be helpful in deciding whether solar thermal is better, solar PV is better, or we can go with thermal storage applications.
Yeah, that's a great question that we'd be happy to help you answer. So take that as an action item to find out what resources we have. I suspect there are probably some publications or kind of other resources that we have that can provide some direction on that. So happy to follow up with you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Going back to, I'll just get that. Going back to the previous question on ASHRAE 62.2, we have to realize that as we become successful as GGAC and our ASHRAE standards are adopted into various government regulations, there becomes another role for us, and that is to communicate to the government bodies that this standard has been improved or this standard has been changed, and make sure that they incorporate the changes that the TC has done into their government regulations. Now, that's the way it should be. However, you may find that there is some pushback, that the government has decided, no, we don't want to change. And you run the risk then of the ASHRAE standard falling out of favor or being not recommended anymore because it has moved on. The government has decided not to. At that point, there's another role for us, which is then to communicate with the TC and tell them, well, you're planning this change. It may be a small change. It may be, I'm sure it's wonderful, the committee, the TC has decided to do this in the best interest, et cetera, et cetera. But if it's an incremental change, maybe we can decide not to do that if it means that the standard falls out of favor. I had an example of this, an extreme example. I used to chair an ASTM committee that we had a standard that hadn't been updated in generations, and we wanted to just drop it. Well, then we found out it was written into a railroad law, and the railroad said, no, you can't do that. So they got lawyers to tell the TC that, no, you can't change this standard. So there's a two-way communication between the TC and the government bodies, and the GGAC is ideally positioned to be the middleman in that, to make sure the TC knows what the governments want and the government knows what the TC is doing.
Yeah, that's a really great point that crystallizes something I was struggling to convey, that GGAC is the nexus of government affairs activity and technical expertise. And absolutely perfectly said. We need to have that discussion as governments do. Things come up, and we've heard so many things just in the short period of time. There's so much happening, and there's such a need to find out what the basis is for various actions. What's our position on various kind of niche issues? And how can we succinctly explain something that is very technical in nature so that the government entities will use the best science? It's something that we're always going to struggle with, and really the only way that we can succeed is by having a continuous conversation, that as things arise, that we have this dynamic relationship through WhatsApp, Basecamp, email, pick your favorite forum. And basically all the really good discussion that we're having today, we need to make sure happens continuously, because governments really around the world never really stop. Even the U.S. Congress is out right now, but actually work is continuing. Work is continuing, I think, in every single country, like all the time. So we're always going to have things that we need to respond to. Other points and other needs, yeah. And so one of the other things that I wanted to focus in, not in any way cutting off discussion about that previous point, but certainly one of the other areas that I would enjoy your feedback on is, what do you need? So again, what I've heard is, in general, we need more like one-pagers. And you just let us know, as you have been doing, demand side management, we need to understand what the resources are for hospitals in developing economies. So, maybe you need like a quick list of bullets about, here are the different resources that you have, here are the ones that maybe cost a little bit of money, and here are the ones that are free, and here's where to get them, and all that stuff. So that it's just something that you have on hand, you can refer to, or you can give to whomever you need to. So that's what I've heard. Again, heard some of the training, like what else do you need? When you say that you need mentorship and training, what exactly do you need? Do you mean by that? Do you need kind of like a distinguished lecturer to come around? Do you need individuals like this esteemed gentleman who has obviously been involved for such a very long time, speak to other people, other chapters, etc., about how he got involved? So perhaps we can drill down a little bit on what you need to succeed in government affairs. What do you mean by training? What do you need?
I think one of the things which I can come up with, basically you are approaching the same subject in its own way to various governments. There would have been a success somewhere by how you approached it. You can approach thousands of ways. So if sharing of that could help, making sure in the least time you could achieve your objectives.
Good sharing.
So that's the one training which could possibly help.
So sharing information. Do you feel that you have means of highlighting successes, and so do you need, for instance, we're brainstorming right now to a certain extent. So would it be useful for each country, region, whatever, to have a sheet that explains the activities and successes within that region?
I think that would be a great, in my opinion, anyone can share.
See, sometimes what happens in an organized, let's say commercial building, you have a very dedicated team of designers and everyone taking care. But what happens is that in some cases, you don't have a detailed design team, very organized team, but the impact is pretty much effective. So if we can take that responsible role and share with the owner, some kind of a small document, as we said, in various verticals. From the point of view of public safety, you're talking about hospitals, you're talking about some community centers and things like that, where there is a owner, but he doesn't know how exactly to design, something like that.
Here's another question. I know that Dr. Allah has a point, but if I could ask this question, how are you finding out about government affairs activities right now? So your governments are all doing stuff, obviously you're all very involved in different ways, but how are you finding out about those things?
Interaction at various forums. And I assume, and what is important to us, we try and sort of check it out, whether they are doing anything or if they are not doing, like Ministry of Renewable Energy. Are they doing something? Can we sort of help?
So you know folks at the Ministry of Renewable Energy,
Oh, yeah.
and maybe they like shoot you an email when something interesting is happening and they need some guidance?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a relationship that you've cultivated,
Yeah.
or that you and your colleagues have.
Keep contact.
Right, so keep contact with folks. What else? Is that the primary method? Yes, sir, Dr. Ahmed.
First of all, thanks Mark for your presentation. I think what we were discussing the last 3 years in the committee, we need to have for our colleagues here like a flow chart or exactly what they should do. I believe that most of the gentlemen here, or ladies and gentlemen, they are doing by personal efforts. I think we should have a clear roadmap for them what they should do to approach the officials. Everyone with his different country, different way, but there is a system, we should do it. We should have it from the society, from the committee of GGAC. This is number one. Number two, we should give them a tools. I asked this before and I'm repeating again. As example, we have in Dubai, 2 courses will be done in February and March, energy audit and 62.1. It is paid from the chapter. We need the society to give a free for officials, not for others. Per regions, per chapters, we can select 3-4 chapters in each region outside of USA, give them a free 10 numbers of officials in each country or 5 numbers or whatever. This will help a lot. This is a tools. People working without tools, as I told you, they are using their own, ideas and own efforts.